Sarah Martinez was tired. Her feet hurt from standing all day. Her back ached from carrying heavy trays. But she kept smiling as she cleaned the tables at the Grand Oak restaurant. She had to smile. She needed this job. The restaurant was fancy. Very fancy. The kind of place where rich people came to eat expensive food and drink wine that cost more than Sarah's rent. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. White tablecloths covered every table. Silver forks and knives shined under the soft lights. Sarah was 23 years old. She had been working at this restaurant for 2 years now. Sometimes she worked the morning shift. Sometimes she worked the evening shift. Today she was working both. A double shift meant more money, and Sarah needed every dollar she could get. Her younger brother Miguel was 16. He was smart. Very smart. He wanted to go to college. He wanted to become a doctor. But college cost money. A lot of money. Their parents had died 3 years ago in a car accident. Now it was just Sarah and Miguel. Sarah was all he had. She was his big sister, his guardian, and the only family he had left in the world. Every night, Sarah came home exhausted. Her uniform smelled like food. Her hair smelled like the kitchen. But Miguel would be at the table doing his homework. He would look up and smile at her. That smile made everything worth it. That smile reminded her why she worked so hard. Tonight was busy at the Grand Oak. It was Friday evening. Rich people loved to come out on Friday nights. They wore expensive suits and beautiful dresses. They laughed loud. They talked about business deals and vacation homes. They left good tips if Sarah was lucky. In the corner of the restaurant sat a grand piano. It was black and shiny, beautiful. Sarah loved that piano. Sometimes, when the restaurant was closed and everyone had gone home, she would sit at that piano. She would play. Just for herself. Just to remember. Sarah had learned to play piano when she was 5 years old. Her mother had been her teacher. Her mother had loved music more than anything. She had dreamed that Sarah would become a famous pianist one day. She had saved money for Sarah's lessons. She had driven Sarah to competitions on weekends, and Sarah had been good. Really good. When she was 8 years old, she won a big competition, a national competition. Her parents had been so proud. They had cried tears of joy. They had believed in her dream, but then the accident happened. The car crash that took them away forever. After that, music felt different. It hurt to play. It reminded Sarah of everything she had lost. So she stopped performing. She stopped competing. She only played alone in the dark when no one could hear. Now the piano at the Grand Oak was her secret friend. Mr. Chen, the restaurant manager, knew she played. Sometimes he would stay late and listen. He never said much. He would just nod and smile. He was a kind man. Tonight, Mr. Chen looked worried. Sarah noticed as she carried a tray of dirty dishes to the kitchen. His phone was pressed to his ear. His face was tight with stress. What's wrong? Sarah asked when she passed him. The pianist, Mr. Chen said. He's sick. He can't come tonight. We have important guests. They expect music with their dinner. Sarah felt bad for Mr. Chen. He worked hard to make the restaurant perfect. He cared about every detail. A missing pianist was a big problem on a busy Friday night. I'm sorry, Sarah said. I hope you find someone. She went back to her work. Table 5 needed more water. Table 7 wanted dessert menus. Table 3 had spilled wine on the tablecloth. Sarah moved quickly from table to table. Her feet hurt more with each step. At the biggest table in the center of the restaurant sat a group of men in expensive suits. They were loud. They laughed a lot. They drank champagne that cost $300 a bottle. Sarah had served them earlier. They had barely looked at her. To them, she was invisible. Just another waitress, but Sarah had heard their conversation. The man at the head of the table was Marcus Wellington. Everyone knew that name. He was a millionaire. Maybe a billionaire. No one knew for sure. He bought buildings. Lots of buildings. Old buildings that nobody wanted. Then he fixed them up and sold them for huge profits. Some people said Marcus Wellington was a genius. Others said he was ruthless. He had a reputation for being tough in business. He fired people easily. He made deals that crushed his competitors. He always won, always. Marcus Wellington was in his 50s. His hair was gray at the temples. His suit probably cost more than Sarah made in 6 months. He wore a watch that sparkled with diamonds. His eyes were sharp, cold. The kind of eyes that saw everything and missed nothing. The men with him were investors. They wanted to give Marcus money for his next big project. They wanted to be part of his success. They laughed at his jokes even when the jokes weren't funny. They agreed with everything he said. They wanted to impress him. Sarah refilled their water glasses. She tried to be invisible. Rich people liked it when servers were invisible. "Where's the music?" one of the investors asked. "I thought this place had a pianist." "They usually do," another man said. "Part of the ambiance." Marcus Wellington looked around the restaurant. His eyes landed on the empty piano. "Disappointing," he said. His voice was deep and confident. "I specifically chose this restaurant because of the live music." Mr. Chen appeared at the table immediately. "I apologize, Mr. Wellington. Our pianist is ill tonight. We're trying to find a replacement." "Trying isn't good enough," Marcus said, but he wasn't angry. He was just stating a fact. "We're celebrating a major deal tonight. We need atmosphere." Sarah felt bad for Mr. Chen. She could see the stress on his face. She wished she could help. But she was just a waitress. She couldn't just sit down at the piano in front of all these people. Could she? No, that was crazy. She hadn't performed in front of people in years. Her hands would shake. She would make mistakes. Everyone would stare at her. But as she walked past the piano, she couldn't help looking at it. The keys seemed to call to her. Her fingers tingled. She remembered the feeling of playing. The freedom, the joy. Before the pain, Marcus Wellington saw her looking. His sharp eyes missed nothing. "You," he called out. His voice cut through the restaurant noise. Sarah froze. Was he talking to her? "Yes, you." "The waitress." Sarah turned slowly. Every person in the restaurant was looking at her now. Her face felt hot. "Yes, sir?" Marcus Wellington studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who just had an interesting idea. "Can you play the piano?" The question hung in the air. Sarah's heart started beating fast. I used to, sir, but I'm working right now." "That's not what I asked," Marcus said. "I asked if you can play." "Yes or no?" Sarah's mouth felt dry. "Yes, sir. I can play." "Excellent." Marcus reached for his wallet. It was thick with cash. He pulled out a crisp $100 bill. He held it up so everyone could see. "Here's my offer. You play one song, just one. If you can play it without making a single mistake, this $100 is yours." The restaurant had gone quiet. People at other tables were watching now. This was entertainment they hadn't expected. "But," Marcus continued, "if you make even one mistake, you donate 1 hour of your wages to a charity of my choice. Do we have a deal?" His investors laughed. They thought this was great fun, a millionaire making a bet with a waitress. They pulled out their phones. This would make a good video. Sarah stood frozen. $100 was a lot of money. That could pay for Miguel's new textbooks, or help with the electricity bill, or buy groceries for 2 weeks. But what if she messed up? She hadn't performed in so long. Her hands might shake. She might forget the notes. And then she would lose an hour's wages. That was money she couldn't afford to lose. Mr. Chen appeared beside her. He leaned close and whispered, "You don't have to do this, Sarah." But then he added even quieter, "But I've heard you play. You're incredible." Sarah looked at the piano again. Then she looked at Marcus Wellington. He was watching her with amused interest. He thought she would say no. He thought she was too scared. She could see it in his eyes. He was used to people being scared of him. Something stirred inside Sarah. Not anger exactly, but something close. Pride, maybe, or stubbornness. She thought about her mother. Her mother had always told her to be brave, to take chances, to believe in herself, and suddenly Sarah knew what she had to say. "Make it $200, she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. The restaurant erupted in whispers and gasps. Marcus Wellington's eyebrows shot up. He clearly hadn't expected that. Sarah's heart was pounding, but she kept talking. $200 for me if I play perfectly. But if I succeed, you also donate $1,000 to the local children's music program." Now the whispers got louder. People were shocked. Who was this waitress? How dare she negotiate with Marcus Wellington? But Marcus didn't look angry. If anything, he looked impressed. A slow smile spread across his face. "You have nerve," he said. "I like that." He stood up from his chair. He was tall. Taller than Sarah had realized. He walked toward her, his hand extended. "You've got yourself a deal," Sarah shook his hand. His grip was firm and strong. "Deal," she said. "What's your name?" Marcus asked. "Sarah. Sarah Martinez." "Well, Sarah Martinez, let's see what you've got." Sarah's hands were trembling as she untied her apron. She handed it to Mr. Chen. He took it and gave her an encouraging nod. She could do this. She had to do this. She walked to the piano. Each step felt like a mile. Every eye in the restaurant was on her. She could hear the whispers. Some people were curious. Others were skeptical. A few seemed to be rooting for her. She reached the piano and sat down on the bench. The familiar feel of it calmed her slightly. She adjusted the bench, moving it closer to the keys. Her hands hovered over them. They were shaking. She took a deep breath. Then another. She closed her eyes. In her mind, she saw her mother, her beautiful mother, sitting beside her during lessons. "Music comes from the heart, mija," her mother used to say. "Trust your heart. Let it guide your fingers." Sarah opened her eyes. The shaking in her hands stopped. She knew what she would play. A piece by Chopin, Nocturne in E-flat major. It was beautiful and complex. It required both technical skill and emotional depth. It was a risk, but it was the piece her mother had loved most. Sarah placed her fingers on the keys. The restaurant held its breath, and then she began to play. The first notes rang out clear and pure. They filled the restaurant like light filling a dark room. People stopped everything. Forks were set down. Conversations ended. Even the kitchen staff stopped working to listen. Sarah's fingers moved across the keys with a confidence she didn't know she still had. The muscle memory was there. Years of practice had built pathways in her brain that couldn't be erased. Her fingers knew where to go even before her mind told them. But it was more than just technical skill. Sarah put her heart into every note. She played her grief for her parents. She played her love for Miguel. She played her struggles and her hopes and her dreams. The piano seemed to understand. It sang under her touch. Marcus Wellington stood very still, watching. The amused look had left his face. Now he looked stunned. Whatever he had expected, it wasn't this. Sarah was lost in the music now. The restaurant disappeared. The people disappeared. There was only the piano and the notes and the emotion flowing through her. This was why she had fallen in love with music as a child. This feeling of freedom, of expression, of being completely alive. Her fingers danced across the keys, playing the faster section with perfect precision, then slowing down for the gentle, tender parts. The music swelled and quieted, rose and fell like waves on an ocean. People in the restaurant were openly staring now. Some had tears in their eyes. Music had a power that words never could. It reached into the heart and found the hidden places, the lonely places, the broken places, and it reminded people that they weren't alone. Sarah approached the ending of the piece. The final notes were delicate. They required a soft touch. She played them gently like a whisper, like a goodbye. The last note hung in the air, fading slowly until there was only silence. For 3 long seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then the applause began. The sound of clapping filled the Grand Oak restaurant. It started slow, then grew louder and louder. People stood up from their tables. They clapped and cheered. Some whistled. A woman at table 7 was crying, wiping tears from her eyes with her napkin. Sarah sat at the piano, frozen. She couldn't believe what had just happened. She had done it. She had played the entire piece without a single mistake. Her hands were still on the keys. They were shaking again, but this time from emotion, not fear. Mr. Chen was clapping harder than anyone. His face was bright with pride. He had always believed in Sarah. Now everyone else could see what he had known all along. She was special. She was talented. She was meant for more than carrying trays and cleaning tables. Sarah slowly stood up from the piano bench. Her legs felt weak. She looked around at all the faces. People were smiling at her. Not the polite smiles customers gave to waitresses. Real smiles. Genuine smiles. She had touched them with her music. Then Sarah's eyes found Marcus Wellington. He wasn't clapping. He was just standing there staring at her. His face had gone pale. His mouth was slightly open. He looked shocked. No more than shocked. He looked like he had seen a ghost. The applause started to die down. People sensed that something was happening. Marcus Wellington wasn't the type of man who showed emotion. But right now his carefully controlled expression had cracked. Something was wrong, or maybe something was very right. Marcus walked slowly toward the piano. His investors watched him with confused looks. They had never seen their boss like this. He always knew what to say. He was always in control. But now he looked shaken. "What's your full name?" Marcus asked Sarah. His voice was rough, like he had something stuck in his throat. "Sarah Martinez," she answered. Her own voice was barely above a whisper. Why did he look so strange? Marcus pulled his phone from his pocket. His hands were trembling slightly as he scrolled through something. The restaurant was silent again. Everyone was watching. What was going on? Finally, Marcus turned his phone around and showed Sarah the screen. It was a video. An old video. The quality wasn't great, but Sarah could see what it was. A stage, a big auditorium, and a little girl sitting at a piano. The girl was maybe 7 or 8 years old. She had long dark hair and a ponytail. She was wearing a blue dress. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She knew that video. She knew that dress. She had worn it on the most important day of her young life. "Is this you?" Marcus asked. But it wasn't really a question. He already knew the answer. "Yes," Sarah whispered. "That's me." The video was from 15 years ago. Sarah had been 8 years old. It was the National Young Musicians Competition, the biggest competition for young pianists in the country. Hundreds of kids had competed. Only the very best made it to the finals. Sarah had made it to the finals, and she had won. First place. The judges had said she was extraordinary. They had said she had a gift. They had said she would be famous one day. Her parents had been so proud. Her mother had cried. Her father had lifted her up and spun her around. It had been the happiest day of Sarah's life. She had been 8 years old and the world had been full of possibilities. Marcus was still staring at the video on his phone. "I was there that day," he said quietly. "I was in that audience." Sarah looked at him with surprise. "You were?" "My daughter competed in that same competition," Marcus said. His voice was thick with emotion now. Her name was Emma Wellington. She was 9 years old. She had been playing piano since she was 4. She loved music more than anything in the world. Marcus paused. He seemed to be struggling to continue. The investors at his table had gone very quiet. They had never heard their boss talk about his personal life. Marcus Wellington was private. He never shared. He never opened up. But something about Sarah's playing had broken through his walls. "Emma came in 3rd place that day," Marcus continued. "She was devastated. Not because she lost. She was devastated because she heard you play. She told me afterward that you were genuinely better than her. She said your music had something special. Something she could never have." Sarah didn't know what to say. She remembered that competition, but she didn't remember the other competitors very well. She had been so nervous, so focused on her own performance. After that competition, Emma never played the same way again. Marcus said. She kept taking lessons. She kept practicing, but something had changed. The joy was gone. She felt like she would never measure up. She felt like what was the point of trying if someone like you existed? "I'm so sorry," Sarah said. She felt terrible. She had never meant to hurt anyone. "I didn't know. I never wanted to make anyone feel bad." "It wasn't your fault," Marcus said quickly. "You were just a child being excellent. Emma was too sensitive, too hard on herself. I tried to tell her that music wasn't a competition, that it was about personal expression, but she couldn't hear me." Marcus looked away. His jaw was tight. He was fighting to keep his emotions under control. "Emma stopped playing piano when she was 15. She said it reminded her of failure. I was angry at her. I thought she was giving up too easily. I told her she was being dramatic. We fought about it. We fought a lot during her teenage years." The restaurant was so quiet that Sarah could hear the sound of traffic outside. Everyone was listening to Marcus's story. This man who was usually so strong, so powerful, was sharing something deeply personal, something painful. "Emma died 3 years ago," Marcus said. The words fell like stones into water, heavy and final. She was 20 years old. Car accident. A drunk driver ran a red light. She died instantly. Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she said again. The words felt useless. What could words do against such a loss? "For the past 3 years I've been running," Marcus said. "Running from the pain. Running from the memories. I threw myself into work. Made more money. Bought more buildings. Closed more deals. I thought if I stayed busy enough it wouldn't hurt so much. He looked back at Sarah. His eyes were wet. But tonight when I heard you play, it all came back. Every memory, every moment. I remembered Emma at age 6 playing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star for the first time. I remembered her at age 9, devastated after the competition. I remembered her at 15 telling me she was done with piano. I remembered all of it. Marcus wiped his eyes quickly, almost angrily. Millionaires weren't supposed to cry in public. But for the first time in 3 years, the memories didn't just hurt. They also felt warm. Your music reminded me why Emma loved playing in the first place. It reminded me of the joy she used to feel. The pure happiness of creating something beautiful. Sarah was crying now too. She understood loss. She understood grief. She understood how music could heal and hurt at the same time. I lost my parents 3 years ago, she said softly. Same as you. Car accident too. After they died, I stopped performing. Music reminded me too much of them, of what I'd lost. I could only play alone in the dark where nobody could see me cry. Marcus looked at her with new understanding. 2 people who had loved music. 2 people who had lost everything. 2 people who had run away from the thing they loved because it hurt too much. But you played tonight, Marcus said. In front of everyone. What made you brave enough to do that? Sarah thought about it. I don't know. Maybe I was tired of running. Or maybe I just needed the money. She gave a small, sad smile. Probably both, Marcus laughed. It was a strange sound mixing sadness and humor. Honest, I appreciate that. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his checkbook. Sarah watched as he clicked open a pen and started writing. She couldn't see what he was writing. The other people in the restaurant craned their necks trying to see too. Marcus tore the check out of the checkbook. He folded it once and held it out to Sarah. Here, he said. Sarah took the check with shaking hands. She unfolded it. Her eyes went wide. She read the number again, sure she was seeing it wrong. But no, the number stayed the same. $50,000. Sarah's knees went weak. She grabbed the edge of the piano to steady herself. I can't accept this, she stammered. This is too much. Way too much. It's not too much, Marcus said firmly. And it's not charity. Consider it an investment. An investment in what? Sarah asked. Her mind was spinning. $50,000. That was more money than she had ever seen in her life. That was more than she made in 3 years at the restaurant. An investment in talent, Marcus said. Mr. Chen told me something while you were playing. He said you applied to the City Conservatory, one of the best music schools in the country. But you couldn't afford the tuition. Sarah looked over at Mr. Chen. He gave her an apologetic shrug. I'm sorry, Sarah, but he asked why you were working here. I told him the truth. Marcus continued. The conservatory costs $60,000 a year. This check covers most of your first year. I'm also setting up a scholarship fund that will cover the rest. Not just for you. For other students like you. Students with talent but no money. Sarah shook her head. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. Why, she asked. Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me. Because Emma would have wanted me to, Marcus said simply. She loved music. She would hate knowing that talented people like you were cleaning tables instead of playing pianos. And because hearing you play tonight gave me something I haven't felt in 3 years. Hope. Maybe peace. I don't know what to call it. But it's something good. Something I thought I'd lost forever. He paused, then added, but there is one condition. Of course there was a condition. Sarah knew it couldn't be this simple. What condition? She asked carefully. I'm establishing the Emma Wellington Music Scholarship Fund, Marcus explained. It will help young musicians who can't afford lessons or school. You'll be our first recipient, but eventually, when you've finished your studies, I want you to help us select the next students. I want you to be part of keeping Emma's love of music alive. Sarah couldn't speak. Tears were running down her face. This was too much, too overwhelming. She had woken up this morning thinking it would be just another hard day of work, just another day of struggling to pay bills and keep Miguel in school. And now everything had changed. In one moment. Because of one song, I'll do it, she whispered. I'll do whatever you need. Thank you. Thank you so much, Marcus nodded. For a moment, his tough businessman face softened. Thank you, he said. For playing tonight. For reminding me what matters. Then something else happened. Mr. Chen stepped forward. He had been standing quietly, watching everything unfold. Now he cleared his throat. "Sarah," he said, "I have a confession to make." Sarah looked at him. "What now? What else could possibly happen tonight?" "For the past 6 months I've been recording you," Mr. Chen said. "When you play here late at night after the restaurant closes. I recorded you on my phone." Sarah felt a flash of anger. "You recorded me?" "Without asking." I know, I should have asked," Mr. Chen said quickly. "But I knew you would say no. You were too shy, too private. But Sarah, you're too talented to hide. So I sent one of the recordings to a friend of mine. He's on the board at the City Conservatory." Sarah's anger faded, replaced by confusion. "You sent my music to the conservatory?" "Yes," Mr. Chen said. 3 weeks ago. And they loved it. They've been trying to reach you. They've been sending emails to the address you put on your application. But I guess you haven't been checking." Sarah felt dizzy. She didn't check that email often. It was an old account she barely used. She had applied to the conservatory months ago, but she had never expected to get in. She had stopped checking for responses. "What are you saying?" Sarah asked. Mr. Chen smiled. His eyes were wet with tears. "I'm saying you've already been accepted, Sarah. Full scholarship. They were so impressed with your playing that they offered to cover your entire tuition. Not just the first year, all 4 years." The restaurant erupted in applause again, but Sarah barely heard it. Her mind was trying to process everything. Marcus Wellington's check, the scholarship fund, the full tuition coverage. It was too much. It was impossible. Things like this didn't happen in real life. "But there's more," Mr. Chen continued. "The conservatory wants you to start in January. That's in 3 months. They're holding a spot for you. They said a talent like yours can't wait." Sarah covered her face with her hands. She was crying too hard to speak. All her dreams, everything she had given up on, everything she thought was impossible. It was all suddenly possible again. Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. "Breathe, Sarah," he said gently. "You deserve this. All of it." Sarah lowered her hands. She looked at Marcus, then at Mr. Chen, then at all the people in the restaurant who were watching her with happy faces. Strangers who moments ago had been ready to laugh at a waitress trying to play piano. Now they were crying with her, celebrating with her. "I accept," Sarah said through her tears. "I accept everything. The money, the scholarship, all of it." "Good," Marcus said. He actually smiled. A real smile, not a business smile. "But I have one more request." "Anything," Sarah said, and she meant it. "I want you to play one more song tonight," Marcus said. "Not for money, not for a bet. Just for us, for Emma, for your parents, for everyone who ever loved music. Can you do that?" Sarah looked at the piano. She thought about her mother and father. She thought about Emma, a girl she had never really known but who had been touched by her music. She thought about all the music still inside her waiting to come out. "Yes," Sarah said. "I can do that." She walked back to the piano and sat down. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. She felt calm, peaceful, like she had finally come home after a long journey. Sarah placed her hands on the piano keys. The restaurant was completely silent. Everyone waited to hear what she would play next. This time there was no bet, no challenge, no pressure. This time she was playing for the pure love of music. She closed her eyes and let her fingers find the first notes. She chose a different piece this time, something by Beethoven, Moonlight Sonata. It was slower than the Chopin piece, more gentle, more emotional. It was a piece about longing, about loss, about hope. The first notes floated through the air like whispers. Sarah played so softly that people had to lean forward to hear. That was the beauty of this piece. It started quiet, small, like a secret being shared. As she played, Sarah's mind filled with memories. She remembered being 6 years old, her mother sitting beside her on the piano bench, her mother's hands guiding her small fingers to the right keys. "Feel the music, Mija," her mother would say. "Don't just play the notes, feel them in your heart." Sarah remembered her first recital. She had been 7. She wore a white dress with pink ribbons. Her hands had shaken so badly she thought she couldn't play, but her father had been in the audience. He had given her a thumbs up and a big smile. That smile had given her courage. She had played perfectly that day. She remembered the national competition when she was 8. The moment they announced her name as the winner. The way her parents had rushed onto the stage. The way her mother had hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. The way her father had cried with pride. "You're going to be famous one day," he had said. "You're going to share your gift with the world." But then the memories turned dark. Sarah remembered the phone call 3 years ago. She had been at work at the restaurant. A police officer had called. There had been an accident. Her parents hadn't survived. She needed to come to the hospital to identify the bodies. Sarah remembered going home to Miguel that night. Her little brother had been 13 then. She'd had to tell him that their parents were never coming home. She'd had to hold him while he cried. She'd had to be strong when she felt broken inside. She remembered sitting at the piano the day after the funeral. She had tried to play, but every note had felt like a knife in her heart. Music reminded her too much of her mother, of her father, of everything she had lost. So she had closed the piano. She had stopped playing. She had given up her dreams. For 3 years, Sarah had focused only on survival. Work, bills, taking care of Miguel. There had been no time for music, no time for dreams, no time for herself. She had become invisible. Just another waitress, just another person struggling to get by. But tonight something had changed. Marcus Wellington's challenge had forced her to face the piano again. And what she had discovered was that music was still there, inside her, waiting. It had never left. She had just buried it deep where it couldn't hurt her. As Sarah played the second movement of Moonlight Sonata, her fingers moved faster. The music grew more intense, more passionate. This part was about struggle, about fighting, about refusing to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. Sarah poured 3 years of pain into the keys. All the exhaustion, all the fear, all the nights she had cried herself to sleep, wondering how she would pay the bills. All the times she had wanted to give up but couldn't because Miguel needed her. The music swelled through the restaurant. People sat frozen listening. Some had tears running down their faces. They didn't know Sarah's story. They didn't know what she had been through. But they could hear it in her music. They could feel her pain, her struggle, her strength. Marcus Wellington stood very still. His eyes were closed. He was listening with his whole body. Sarah's music was telling a story he understood, a story of loss, of grief, of trying to keep going when you just wanted to stop. He had lived that same story for 3 years. At his table, the investors had forgotten all about business. They weren't thinking about deals or profits or investments. They were just human beings, listening to another human being pour out her heart through music. It was a reminder that money and power weren't everything, that sometimes the most valuable things couldn't be bought. Mr. Chen stood near the kitchen door. Tears ran freely down his face. He had known Sarah was talented. He had heard her play many times. But tonight was different. Tonight she wasn't just playing the notes. She was playing her soul. And it was the most beautiful thing he had ever heard. Even the kitchen staff had stopped working. The cooks, the dishwashers, the other servers. They all stood in the doorway listening. Sarah was one of them. She was their co-worker, their friend. They had seen her struggle. They had seen her work double shifts. They had seen her exhaustion, and now they were seeing her shine. Sarah moved into the third movement. This part was faster, more hopeful. It was about resolution, about acceptance, about finding peace after struggle. Her fingers flew across the keys with confidence. She wasn't thinking about the notes anymore. She was just feeling, just being. Just playing. As she played, Sarah realized something. Music hadn't been her enemy. It had been her friend all along. Yes, it reminded her of her parents. But it also connected her to them. When she played, they were still with her. Their love, their support, their belief in her. It was all still there in the music. She also realized that giving up on music had been giving up on herself. She had thought she was being practical, being responsible, taking care of Miguel. But she had also been hiding. She had been making herself small. She had been settling for less than she deserved. Tonight, Marcus Wellington had challenged her to play. But really, he had challenged her to stop hiding, to stop being afraid, to step back into her own life. And she had accepted that challenge, not just for the money, but for herself. The music reached its climax. Sarah's hands were moving so fast they were almost a blur, but every note was perfect. Every phrase was exactly right. She had practiced this piece hundreds of times as a teenager. Her fingers knew it by heart. They remembered even when her mind tried to forget. Then, slowly, the music began to wind down. The notes got softer, gentler, like a storm passing. Like the sun coming out after rain, Sarah played the final phrases with such tenderness that people held their breath. The last note rang out pure and clear, then faded into silence. For a long moment, nobody moved. The restaurant was so quiet that Sarah could hear her own heartbeat. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Then everyone. The applause was even louder than before. People were standing, cheering. Some were laughing with joy. Others were still crying. Sarah stood up from the piano. She felt different, lighter, like she had been carrying a heavy weight and had finally put it down. Music wasn't her enemy. It was her gift, and she was ready to claim it again. Marcus Wellington walked over to her. "That was extraordinary," he said. His voice was rough with emotion. Thank you, Sarah said, "for challenging me, for pushing me." "I needed it. We both needed it," Marcus said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "This is my personal number. Call me next week. We'll set up the scholarship fund properly. We'll make sure you have everything you need for the conservatory." Sarah took the card. Her hands were still shaking, but now it was from excitement, not fear. "I will, I promise." Other people came up to congratulate her. The investors from Marcus's table, other customers, the kitchen staff. Everyone wanted to tell her how beautiful her playing was, how much it had moved them, how talented she was. One elderly woman took Sarah's hands in hers. "I haven't cried like that in years," she said. "Your music touched something deep inside me, something I thought I'd forgotten. Thank you, dear. Thank you for reminding me that beauty still exists in this world." A young couple approached next. The man said, "We got engaged last month. We've been looking for music for our wedding. Would you be willing to play? We'll pay you, of course. Whatever your rate is." Sarah didn't know what to say. She didn't have a rate. She wasn't a professional musician. Or was she? Maybe after tonight she was. "Let me give you my number," she said. "We can talk about it." More people came up. More compliments. More opportunities. It was overwhelming. But it was also wonderful. Sarah had spent 3 years trying to be invisible. Tonight she had become visible again. And it felt good. Finally, the crowd started to disperse. People went back to their tables. The restaurant slowly returned to normal, or at least as normal as it could be after what had just happened. Mr. Chen came over with a glass of water. "Drink this," he said kindly. "You must be exhausted." Sarah took the water gratefully. She was exhausted, but it was a good kind of tired. The kind that came after doing something important, something meaningful. "Mr. Chen," Sarah said, "thank you. For recording me. For sending my music to the conservatory. I know I should be mad at you for doing it without permission. But I'm not. If you hadn't done that, I might have stayed stuck forever." Mr. Chen smiled. "You're not the kind of person who stays stuck, Sarah. You would have found your way eventually. I just helped speed things up a little." "Still," Sarah said, "thank you. For believing in me. For seeing something in me that I couldn't see in myself." "That's what good managers do," Mr. Chen said. But he was clearly pleased. "Now about your job here. I assume you'll be leaving in January when school starts?" Sarah nodded. "I'll have to. The conservatory is full-time, but I'll work until then. I promise. I won't leave you short-handed." "Actually," Mr. Chen said, "I have a different idea. What if you worked part-time until January? Just weekends. And on Sunday evenings you could play piano here for the dinner crowd. I'll pay you double your current rate. The live music will bring in more customers. It's good for business." Sarah's eyes widened. "You want me to play here? Regularly?" "If you're willing," Mr. Chen said. "I know you'll be busy preparing for the conservatory, but a few hours on the weekend shouldn't be too much. And honestly, after tonight, I think people will come from all over the city just to hear you play." Sarah thought about it. It made sense. She would still need money for rent and groceries. Miguel still needed support, and playing regularly would help her practice for school. "Okay," she said. "I'll do it. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for everything." "No," Mr. Chen said. "Thank you. For making this old restaurant into something special. For giving people an experience they'll never forget." Sarah looked around the Grand Oak restaurant. Just a few hours ago, it had been just her workplace. The place where she was invisible. Where she served rich people and cleaned up their messes. where she felt small and insignificant. But now it felt different. This restaurant had become the place where her life changed, where she stopped hiding and started living again, where she remembered who she really was, not just a waitress, not just someone trying to survive, but an artist, a musician, someone with a gift to share. Marcus Wellington was getting ready to leave. His investors were gathering their coats and briefcases. But before he left, Marcus came over to Sarah one more time. "I meant what I said earlier," he told her. "This isn't charity. It's an investment. I believe you're going to do great things, Sarah Martinez. And when you do, I want to be able to say I was there at the beginning." "I won't let you down," Sarah promised. "I know you won't," Marcus said. "But more importantly, don't let yourself down. You have a rare gift. Don't waste it. Don't hide it. The world needs beautiful things. Now more than ever." He paused, then added quietly, "Emma would have loved your music. She would have been so happy knowing that her scholarship fund helped someone like you. In a way, this keeps her alive, keeps her love of music alive. So thank you for that." Sarah felt tears coming again. "I'll make her proud," she said. "I promise," Marcus nodded. Then he did something surprising. He hugged her. It was brief and awkward. Marcus Wellington clearly wasn't used to hugging people. But it was genuine. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. "Good luck, Sarah," he said. Then he turned and left with his investors. Sarah watched him go. A millionaire who had started the evening planning business deals and ended it confronting his grief. A man who had been running from his pain and had finally stopped running. All because Sarah had played the piano. Life was strange that way. You never knew when one moment could change everything. One song, one performance, one challenge accepted, and suddenly everything was different. Sarah looked at her watch. It was late. Miguel would be waiting for her at home. He was probably worried. She usually texted him when her shift ran long. But tonight she had forgotten. Tonight she had been too busy changing her entire life. She needed to get home. She needed to tell Miguel everything that had happened. He wouldn't believe it. She barely believed it herself. But it was real. The check in her pocket was real. The scholarship acceptance was real. The future was real. Sarah gathered her things from the break room. Her apron, her purse, her phone. When she turned on her phone, she saw 5 missed calls from Miguel. Her heart squeezed with guilt. He must have been so worried she called him immediately. He answered on the first ring. "Sarah, where have you been? I've been calling and calling. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Sarah said. Her voice was shaking with emotion. "Oh, Miguel, something happened tonight. Something incredible. I'm coming home now. I'll tell you everything." "What happened?" "You're scaring me," Miguel said. "No, don't be scared. It's good news. Amazing news. Just wait for me. I'll be home in 20 minutes. She hung up before he could ask more questions. She wanted to see his face when she told him. She wanted to see his expression when she showed him the check. Sarah said goodbye to Mr. Chen and the other staff. They all congratulated her again. They hugged her. They told her they were proud of her. It felt surreal. Yesterday she had been just another employee. Today she was someone special. The night air was cold as Sarah stepped outside. She took a deep breath. The city smelled like car exhaust and restaurant food. But tonight it smelled like possibility, like hope, like a future that was bigger and brighter than she had ever imagined. She took the bus home. She lived in a small apartment on the other side of town. It was cheap. The neighborhood wasn't great, but it was safe enough, and it was all she could afford on a waitress's salary. During the bus ride, Sarah kept touching the check in her pocket, making sure it was still there, making sure she hadn't dreamed the whole thing. $50,000. It was more money than her parents had made in a year. It was enough to change everything. She thought about Marcus Wellington, a man who had everything money could buy, but he had lost the one thing that mattered most, his daughter. Sarah understood that pain. She had lost her parents. Loss didn't care if you were rich or poor. It hurt everyone the same way. But tonight Marcus had found something he thought was gone forever. Peace, or at least the beginning of peace. And Sarah had found something too. Her voice, her courage, herself. She had been hiding for so long. Tonight she had stepped back into the light. The bus dropped her off 2 blocks from her apartment. She walked quickly. She was eager to get home, to tell Miguel. to start planning their new life. Their apartment was on the third floor of an old building. The elevator was broken as usual. Sarah climbed the stairs, her feet aching from her long shift. But she barely noticed the pain. Her mind was racing with thoughts. The conservatory, music school, a real future as a musician. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. Miguel was sitting at the small kitchen table doing homework. He jumped up when he saw her. "Finally!" "What happened? Why weren't you answering your phone?" Sarah set down her purse. She looked at her little brother. He was 16 now, almost a man. But she still saw the scared 13-year-old he had been when their parents died. The boy who had cried in her arms. The boy who had needed her to be strong. "Sit down," Sarah said. "I need to tell you something." Miguel sat. His eyes were wide with concern. "Did you get fired, is that it? Because if you did, it's okay. We'll figure something out. I can get a job." No, Sarah interrupted. "I didn't get fired. The opposite, actually. Miguel, tonight something amazing happened." She told him everything, about Marcus Wellington and his challenge, about playing the piano in front of everyone, about the standing ovation, about the check for $50,000, about the scholarship to the conservatory, about all of it. Miguel listened with his mouth hanging open. When Sarah finished, he just stared at her. "You're joking," he finally said. "This is a joke, right?" "No joke." Sarah pulled the check out of her pocket and showed him. Miguel looked at the check. His hands started shaking. $50,000, he whispered. "Sarah, this is... I know," Sarah said. She was crying again. Happy tears this time. Miguel started crying too. He jumped up and hugged her tight. "You did it," he sobbed. "You're going to music school. You're going to be a real musician. Mom and Dad would be so proud." They held each other for a long time. Two orphans who had survived 3 terrible years together. 2 siblings who had only each other. And now finally things were looking up. Finally the struggle was easing. Finally there was hope. When they pulled apart, Miguel wiped his eyes. "So what happens now?" he asked. "I start at the conservatory in January," Sarah said. "That's 3 months away. Until then, I'll keep working at the restaurant on weekends. I'll play piano on Sunday nights. Mr. Chen is paying me double. And I need to start preparing, practicing, getting ready." "What about me?" Miguel asked quietly. "Will you still be able to help with my school stuff?" Sarah took his hands. "Always, you're my priority. You always have been. This check means I can help you even more. No more worrying about money. No more choosing between paying rent or buying groceries. We're going to be okay, Miguel. Finally, we're going to be okay." Miguel smiled. It was the biggest smile Sarah had seen on his face in 3 years. "I'm so happy for you. You deserve this. You've worked so hard. You've given up so much for me." "I haven't given up anything," Sarah said firmly. "Taking care of you isn't giving up. You're my family. You're all I have. I'd do it again in a heartbeat." They talked late into the night, making plans, dreaming, imagining the future. For the first time in 3 years, the future felt bright instead of scary, full of possibility instead of just struggle. Finally, around midnight, they both went to bed. But Sarah couldn't sleep. Her mind was too full. She kept replaying the evening in her head. Every moment, every note, every word Marcus Wellington had said. She thought about Emma Wellington, a girl she had never really known, a girl who had given up on music because she felt she couldn't measure up. Sarah understood that feeling. The feeling of not being good enough, of comparing yourself to others and always falling short. But tonight had taught Sarah something important. Music wasn't a competition. It wasn't about being the best. It was about expression, about sharing, about connecting with people through sound and emotion. Emma had been wrong to give up. But Sarah couldn't change the past. She could only honor Emma's memory by doing what Emma should have done, by pursuing music with everything she had. Sarah also thought about Marcus Wellington, how different he had seemed at the end of the night. When he first arrived at the restaurant, he had been cold, distant, arrogant. He had challenged Sarah like she was entertainment, like she was beneath him, but music had changed him. Sarah's playing had cracked open something inside him. It had forced him to feel again, to remember, to grieve properly instead of just running away from the pain. In helping Marcus find peace, Sarah had also found her own peace. It was strange how that worked, how helping someone else could heal yourself too. Finally, around 2 in the morning, Sarah fell asleep. She dreamed about her parents. In the dream, they were at one of her childhood recitals. Her mother was in the front row smiling. Her father was recording on his old camera. They looked proud. They looked happy. When Sarah woke up the next morning, she felt different, rested, peaceful, ready. She had a long day ahead. She needed to call the conservatory, confirm her acceptance, figure out the schedule, start preparing, but first she made breakfast for Miguel, pancakes, his favorite. While she cooked, Miguel came into the kitchen, still in his pajamas. "I thought last night might have been a dream," he said. "It was real," Sarah assured him. "All of it." "Good," Miguel said, "because I've been thinking. When you're at the conservatory, I want to get a part-time job. Nothing that will hurt my grades, but something to help out. You've been taking care of me for 3 years. It's time I help too." Sarah felt her eyes get wet again. When had her little brother become so mature? So thoughtful? "We'll figure it out together," she said. As a team. After breakfast, Sarah called the conservatory. A woman named Dr. Harrison answered. She was the head of the piano department. "Miss Martinez," Dr. Harrison said warmly. "We've been trying to reach you for weeks. We were starting to worry you weren't interested." "I'm very interested," Sarah said quickly. "I'm sorry I didn't respond sooner. I didn't know about the acceptance until last night." "Well, we're thrilled to have you," Dr. Harrison said. "Your audition recording was exceptional. We rarely offer full scholarships, but your case was unanimous. Every member of the board voted yes immediately." They talked for almost an hour. Dr. Harrison explained the program, the schedule, what Sarah should prepare, what she needed to bring. Sarah took notes furiously. Her hand cramped from writing, but she didn't care. This was her future. She wanted to remember every detail. "There's one more thing," Dr. Harrison said near the end of the call. "We'd like you to perform at our winter showcase in December. It's an event where incoming students perform for current students and faculty. Would you be interested?" Sarah's stomach flipped with nerves, but she said, "Yes, I'd love to." "Wonderful. We'll send you the details." "Welcome to the conservatory, Miss Martinez. We're lucky to have you." After the call ended, Sarah sat on the couch, stunned. Her life was really changing. This was really happening. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a conservatory student. A musician. Someone with a future. The next few days passed in a blur. Sarah went to the bank and deposited Marcus Wellington's check. The bank teller's eyes had gone wide when she saw the amount. "Big lottery win?" she had asked jokingly. "Better than the lottery," Sarah had replied. A second chance. She kept working at the Grand Oak restaurant. But now people recognized her. Customers who had been there that Friday night would point her out to their friends. "That's the waitress who played piano," they would say. She was incredible. Some customers specifically requested to sit in her section. They wanted to talk to her, to hear her story, to tell her how much her music had moved them. It was overwhelming but also amazing. Sarah had spent so long being invisible. Now suddenly everyone saw her. On Sunday evening, Sarah played piano at the restaurant for the first time as an official performer. Mr. Chen had advertised it. Live music by Sarah Martinez, future conservatory student. The restaurant was packed. Every table was full. People were standing in the back just to listen. Sarah played for 2 hours. Different pieces, classical, some jazz, even a few modern songs. The audience loved every minute. They applauded after each piece. Some people requested specific songs. Sarah did her best to accommodate them. During a break, a woman approached her. She was in her 30s, well-dressed, professional-looking. "Hi, I'm Jennifer Cole," she said. "I'm a talent agent. I represent classical musicians. I'd like to talk to you about representation." Sarah was shocked. "A talent agent? But I'm just starting school. I'm not even a professional yet." "Not yet," Jennifer agreed. "But you will be. I can see that. I've been in this business for 15 years. I know talent when I see it. And hear it. You have something special, Sarah. Let me help you share it with the world." They exchanged contact information. Jennifer promised to call in a few weeks to discuss details. As she walked away, Sarah just stood there amazed. A talent agent. This was getting more surreal by the day. The next day, Sarah called Marcus Wellington. He answered on the second ring. "Sarah, I was hoping you'd call." "How are you?" "I'm good," Sarah said. "Great, actually. I wanted to thank you again. For everything. The check. The scholarship fund. All of it. You don't need to thank me, Marcus said. I should be thanking you. Sarah, I haven't slept that well in 3 years. After I left the restaurant that night, I went home and I cried. Really cried, for the first time since Emma died. And it felt good. It felt like healing. I'm glad, Sarah said softly. I've started the scholarship fund officially, Marcus continued. The Emma Wellington Music Scholarship. We're going to help at least 10 students in the first year, maybe more. And I'd like you to be on the selection committee, once you're settled at the conservatory, of course. I'd be honored, Sarah said. There's something else, Marcus added. I went to Emma's grave yesterday. First time in 6 months. I brought flowers. I played your music on my phone. The recording from the restaurant that one of my investors took. And I talked to her. Told her about you. About how your music reminded me of why she loved playing. It felt good to talk to her again. To remember her with love instead of just pain. Sarah felt tears building again. She seemed to cry a lot these days. But they were good tears. Healing tears. She'd be proud of the scholarship fund, Sarah said. She'd love knowing that her name is helping other musicians. I think so too, Marcus agreed. They talked for a while longer. Marcus wanted updates on Sarah's preparations for the conservatory. He offered to help if she needed anything, money, connections, whatever she required. Sarah thanked him but said she had everything she needed, for now at least. Over the next few weeks, Sarah's life continued to transform. She practiced piano every day. For hours, her fingers got stronger. Her technique improved. She learned new pieces, harder pieces. Pieces that would impress the conservatory faculty. Miguel watched her practice sometimes. He'd sit on the couch doing homework while Sarah played. You're getting even better, he observed one evening. I have to, Sarah said. The conservatory is competitive. I need to be ready. You'll be more than ready, Miguel said confidently. You're the best pianist I've ever heard. And I'm not just saying that because you're my sister. Sarah smiled. Miguel's faith in her meant everything. December came quickly. Sarah could hardly believe how fast time was moving. 3 months ago, she had been just a waitress with no hope. Now she was preparing for her showcase performance at the conservatory, her first official appearance as a student musician. The showcase was scheduled for December 15th. Sarah had chosen 3 pieces to perform: a Bach prelude, a Chopin nocturne, and a modern piece by a living composer. Together they would demonstrate her range, her technical skill, her emotional depth. Miguel helped her pick out a dress for the performance. They went shopping together, something they rarely had money to do. Sarah chose a simple black dress. Elegant but not too fancy. She wanted the focus to be on her music, not her appearance. You look like a real musician, Miguel said when she tried it on. I am a real musician, Sarah replied. It was the first time she had said those words out loud. And they felt true. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't pretending. She wasn't hiding. She was exactly who she was meant to be. The night before the showcase, Sarah couldn't sleep. She was too nervous, too excited, too everything. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, going over the pieces in her mind. Every note, every phrase, every subtle dynamic change. Finally, around 3 in the morning, she gave up on sleep. She got up and made tea. She sat at their small kitchen table, wrapped in a blanket, watching the city lights outside the window. Miguel found her there an hour later. Couldn't sleep either? He asked. Too nervous, Sarah admitted. Miguel sat down across from her. You're going to be amazing. You know that, right? I hope so, Sarah said. This is important. There will be faculty there, current students, donors, people who matter in the music world. And you'll show them exactly what you showed everyone at the Grand Oak, Miguel said firmly. You'll show them your heart. That's what makes you special, Sarah. Not just your technical skill, but the way you feel music, the way you make other people feel it too. Sarah reached across the table and took his hand. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best, Miguel said with a smile. You've been taking care of me for 3 years, teaching me, showing me how to be strong even when things are hard. Now it's my turn to believe in you the way you've always believed in me. They sat together in the quiet kitchen, 2 siblings who had survived the worst and were now facing something wonderful. Finally, the sun started to rise. A new day was beginning. Sarah's day. She showered and dressed carefully. The black dress fit perfectly. She kept her hair simple. just pulled back from her face. A little makeup, but not too much. She wanted to look professional, confident, ready. Miguel wore his best shirt and pants. He had insisted on coming to the showcase. "I wouldn't miss this for anything," he had said. "I want to be there when you show them what you can do." They took a bus to the conservatory. It was a beautiful building in the downtown area. Old stone walls. High windows. It looked like a castle. Like the kind of place where magic happened. Inside, everything was elegant. Polished wood floors. Oil paintings of famous composers on the walls. Display cases with old instruments. Sarah felt like she had stepped into a different world. A world where music mattered. Where art was valued. Where people like her belonged. A student volunteer showed them to the auditorium. It was a large room with rows of plush seats. A stage at the front with a beautiful grand piano. The piano was even nicer than the one at the Grand Oak. Sarah's fingers itched to play it. "You'll perform fifth," the volunteer explained. "There are 12 students showcasing tonight. You'll wait backstage until it's your turn." Sarah nodded. Her mouth was too dry to speak. Miguel squeezed her hand. "You've got this," he whispered. They went backstage. Other students were there, all looking as nervous as Sarah felt. Some were warming up with scales. Others were sitting quietly, eyes closed, visualizing their performances. Sarah found a corner and tried to breathe deeply. "Stay calm. Stay focused." Dr. Harrison appeared. "Sarah, there you are. How are you feeling?" "Nervous," Sarah admitted. "Good," Dr. Harrison said. "Nerves mean you care. Just channel that energy into your performance. You're going to be wonderful. I've heard you play, remember? I know what you're capable of." The showcase began. Sarah could hear the first student performing through the curtain, a violin solo. The student was good, very good. Sarah felt a flash of doubt. Everyone here was talented. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she didn't measure up? But then she remembered Marcus Wellington's words. Music wasn't a competition. It wasn't about being better than everyone else. It was about sharing your unique voice, your unique perspective. No one else could play exactly the way Sarah played. That was her strength. Her individuality, one by one, students performed. A cellist, a flutist, a soprano. Each one was impressive in their own way. The audience applauded enthusiastically after each performance. Then it was Sarah's turn. The volunteer appeared at her side. "You're up next, Miss Martinez." Sarah stood on shaking legs. She smoothed her dress, took a deep breath. This was it. This was her moment. She walked onto the stage. The lights were bright. The audience was a sea of faces. She could see Miguel in the third row giving her a thumbs up, just like her father used to do. The memory gave her courage. Sarah walked to the piano and sat down. She adjusted the bench, positioned her hands over the keys. The auditorium was completely silent. Everyone was waiting. Sarah closed her eyes. She thought about her mother, her first teacher, her biggest supporter. She thought about her father, who had worked so hard to give her opportunities. She thought about Emma Wellington, who had given up too soon. She thought about Marcus, who had given her a second chance. Then Sarah began to play. The Bach prelude flowed from her fingers like water. Clean, precise, perfect. Every note exactly where it should be. The piece was technical, meant to show skill. And Sarah had skill, years of practice, years of discipline. It showed in every measure. The audience listened intently. Faculty members nodded approvingly. They recognized quality when they heard it. Sarah's technique was flawless. When the Bach ended, Sarah moved immediately into the Chopin Nocturne. This piece was different, less about technique and more about emotion. It was soft, gentle, melancholy. Sarah poured her heart into it. All her longing, all her memories, all her love for the parents she had lost. Several people in the audience had tears in their eyes. Miguel was crying openly. The music touched something deep inside them, something vulnerable, something human. The nocturne ended softly like a whisper. Sarah held the final note, letting it fade naturally. Then, without pause, she moved into the modern piece. This was the hardest of the three. Complex rhythms, dissonant harmonies, unexpected changes. It required complete focus, complete mastery. Sarah attacked it with confidence. Her hands flew across the keys. She didn't hold back. She gave everything she had. Every ounce of energy, every bit of passion. The music filled the auditorium. Powerful, demanding, impossible to ignore. When she struck the final chord, it rang out like a declaration, like a statement. Sarah Martinez had arrived, and she was here to stay. The silence lasted only a second. Then the auditorium exploded with applause. People jumped to their feet, standing ovation, just like at the Grand Oak. But this time it meant even more, because these weren't just restaurant customers. These were musicians, professionals, people who knew excellence when they heard it, and they were acknowledging that Sarah had it. Sarah stood and bowed. Tears were running down her face, but she was smiling. She had done it. She had proven herself. She belonged here. She deserved to be here. As she walked off stage, Dr. Harrison was waiting in the wings. "That was extraordinary," she said, hugging Sarah. "Welcome to the conservatory, Sarah. We're so lucky to have you." Sarah found Miguel in the lobby after the showcase. He ran to her and hugged her so tight she couldn't breathe. "You were perfect," he sobbed. Perfect. Mom and Dad would be so proud. So proud they held each other and cried. Happy tears. Grateful tears. Tears of relief and joy and hope. Other people came up to congratulate Sarah. Students, faculty, donors. Everyone wanted to talk to her, to tell her how moved they were, how talented she was, how excited they were to see what she would do next. One older man in an expensive suit introduced himself. "I'm Richard Chen," he said. "No relation to your restaurant manager despite the name. I'm on the conservatory board. I'm also a concert promoter. I book musicians for venues across the country. I'd like to talk to you about performing, not now but in the future. When you're ready, I think you could have a real career, a significant career." Sarah could barely process his words. A concert promoter, venues across the country, a real career. It was too much, too overwhelming, but also wonderful, amazing. Everything she had dreamed of as a child was suddenly possible again. Later that night, back at their apartment, Sarah and Miguel ordered pizza to celebrate. They ate it cold because they were too excited to heat it up properly. They talked about the showcase, about the future, about all the possibilities. "I was thinking," Miguel said around a mouthful of pizza. "When you're famous, and you will be famous, I want to manage your schedule. I'm good at organizing things, and that way we can still work together. Still be a team," Sarah laughed. "Deal, but you have to finish high school first." "He sees me as a way to honor his daughter," Sarah said. "By helping me, he's keeping her memory alive, keeping her love of music alive." "That's beautiful," Miguel said. "Sad, but beautiful." Over the next few weeks, Sarah officially started classes at the conservatory. Music theory, music history, performance technique, private lessons with Dr. Harrison. It was intense, challenging, more work than Sarah had ever done. But it was also wonderful. For the first time in her life, Sarah was surrounded by people who understood her, who valued music the way she did, who spoke her language. She made friends, studied with classmates, performed in master classes. She was thriving. She still played at the Grand Oak on Sunday nights. It was important to her, a reminder of where she came from, of how far she had traveled. Mr. Chen always introduced her the same way. "Please welcome Sarah Martinez, conservatory student and future star." The restaurant was always packed on Sundays now. People came from all over the city to hear her play. Some were regular customers. Others were music lovers who had heard about her. A few were talent scouts looking for the next big thing. Marcus Wellington came occasionally. He would sit alone at a corner table drinking coffee, listening. He never made a big deal of his presence. He just wanted to hear Sarah play. Afterward, he would leave a generous tip and a simple note. "Beautiful as always. Keep going. Emma would be proud." The Emma Wellington Music Scholarship Fund grew quickly. By February, they had enough money to help 15 students. Young musicians who couldn't afford lessons. Kids from poor neighborhoods who had talent but no opportunities. Sarah helped interview each applicant. She looked for the same thing in them that Marcus had seen in her. Not just skill, but passion, heart, the desire to share music with the world. One applicant was a 12-year-old boy named David. He played guitar. He had taught himself by watching videos online because his family couldn't afford lessons. When he played for Sarah and Marcus, they both knew immediately. He had it, that special something. They gave him the scholarship on the spot. David's mother cried when they told her. Thank you, she kept saying. Thank you so much. He loves music more than anything. But we just couldn't afford it. Thank you for giving him a chance. Sarah hugged her.
Someone gave me a chance, she said.
Now I get to pass it on. That's how it works. Marcus watched the interaction with misty eyes. Later, he told Sarah, this is what Emma would have wanted. Not a big fancy memorial, but something real. Something that actually helps people. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you for starting it, Sarah replied. You turned your grief into something beautiful. That takes courage. As spring arrived, Sarah's life continued to blossom. She performed in several conservatory concerts. Each time she got better, more confident, more comfortable on stage. Her professors praised her progress. Her classmates admired her dedication. Jennifer Cole, the talent agent, started booking Sarah for small gigs. Nothing major yet, just local events, weddings, private parties, charity fundraisers. But each performance built Sarah's reputation, built her experience, built her confidence. Miguel was thriving too. He had gotten a part-time job at a bookstore, just a few hours a week after school. The money wasn't much, but it made him feel independent, responsible. He was growing up, becoming his own person. One evening in April, Sarah came home from the conservatory to find Miguel at the kitchen table with college brochures spread out in front of him. All ready? Sarah asked with a smile. You're only a junior. I know, Miguel said. But I want to be prepared. I want to know my options. And Sarah, look at this. He showed her a brochure for a pre-med program. I really think I want to be a doctor. I've been volunteering at the free clinic downtown. I love it. I love helping people, making them feel better. Sarah felt her heart swell with pride. Mom and Dad would be so proud of you. They'd be proud of both of us, Miguel said. We survived. We didn't just survive. We're actually doing well. We're living, not just existing. That was true. For 3 years, they had just been existing, getting through each day. But now they were truly living, pursuing dreams, building futures, honoring the people they had lost by living fully. In May, Sarah received unexpected news. She had been chosen to compete in an international piano competition. It was prestigious, competitive. Winners often got recording contracts, concert bookings. Real careers, you have to do it, Dr. Harrison insisted. This is a huge opportunity. Huge. Most students don't get invited to compete until their 3rd or 4th year. The fact that they want you as a first-year student says everything about your talent. Sarah was terrified. International competition meant facing the best young pianists from around the world. People who had been training at prestigious schools since childhood. People with years more experience, but she was also excited. This was the kind of opportunity her mother had dreamed of for her. The kind of platform that could launch a real career. She talked to Marcus about it. They had coffee at a small cafe near the conservatory. Marcus listened as Sarah explained her fears, her doubts, her worry that she wasn't ready. Sarah, Marcus said when she finished, let me tell you something about success. It's not about being ready. It's about being willing to try even when you're scared. I've made millions of dollars in real estate. You know how? By taking risks. By saying yes even when I wasn't sure. By believing in myself even when others didn't. He paused, stirring his coffee. You're ready. Maybe you don't feel ready, but you are. You've been ready since you were 8 years old and won that national competition. You just forgot for a while. Now you're remembering. Don't let fear hold you back. Emma let fear hold her back. Don't make the same mistake, Sarah nodded slowly. He was right. She was ready. Maybe she'd fail. Maybe she wouldn't win. But she'd regret not trying more than she'd regret failing. I'll do it, she said. I'll compete, Marcus smiled. Good. And Sarah? I'll be there. In the audience. Cheering you on. You won't be alone. The competition was in July. Sarah spent the next 2 months preparing intensely. She practiced 6 hours a day, sometimes more. She worked with Dr. Harrison on every detail, every phrase, every dynamic, every emotion. Miguel helped however he could. He made sure Sarah ate, reminded her to take breaks, listened to her practice and offered encouragement. He was her biggest supporter, her anchor. The night before they left for the competition, Sarah couldn't sleep. Again. She lay in bed thinking about everything, about her parents, about Emma, about Marcus, about all the people who had believed in her, who had invested in her, who wanted her to succeed. She thought about the little girl she had been, 8 years old, standing on a stage, winning a competition, believing anything was possible. That little girl was still inside her, still believing, still dreaming. The competition was held in New York City. Sarah had never been to New York. The city was overwhelming. So many people, so much noise, so much energy, but also exciting. This was where music careers were made. Where dreams came true. Miguel came with her. So did Marcus Wellington. He had insisted on paying for their hotel rooms. Consider it part of the scholarship, he said. Musicians need support, not just financial, but emotional too. Dr. Harrison came too. As Sarah's professor, she wanted to be there, to support her student. To witness this moment, the competition lasted 3 days. Dozens of competitors from 20 different countries. Sarah heard pianists from Russia, from Japan, from Germany, from Brazil. All of them were extraordinary. All of them deserved to win. Sarah competed on the second day. She played 3 pieces, the same ones from her showcase plus 1 additional piece, a Rachmaninoff concerto, the hardest thing she had ever attempted. When she walked onto the stage, she saw Marcus in the audience, and Miguel, and Dr. Harrison, her people, her family, the ones who believed in her. Sarah sat at the piano. She closed her eyes. She thought about her mother's words. Music comes from the heart, Misha. Trust your heart. And then she played. She gave everything she had. Every ounce of skill. Every bit of emotion. Every piece of her soul. She played for her parents. For Emma. For Marcus. For Miguel. For everyone who had ever believed in her. When she finished, the audience erupted. Standing ovation. Again. Sarah was getting used to that now. But it never got old. The feeling of connecting with people through music, of touching their hearts, of making them feel something real. The judges deliberated for hours. Sarah waited backstage with the other competitors. Everyone was nervous, hopeful, scared. They had all worked so hard. They all wanted to win. Finally, the announcement came. 3rd place went to a pianist from South Korea. 2nd place went to a pianist from Russia. Both were incredible. Both deserved their recognition. Then the judge announced 1st place. Sarah Martinez, United States. Sarah's mind went blank. She couldn't process the words. 1st place? She had won. It didn't seem real. Miguel was screaming. Dr. Harrison was crying. Marcus was on his feet, applauding harder than anyone. Sarah walked onto the stage in a daze. They handed her a trophy, a certificate, a check for $10,000. But more importantly, they offered her a recording contract and bookings for concerts across Europe and Asia. This was it. This was the moment that changed everything. Again. That night they all celebrated together.